Erik Marks is the Director of Product for Permissionless Innovation at MetaMask. MetaMask, the popular non-custodial wallet owned by Consensys, has been in the spotlight following the launch of Snaps on open beta. You can think of Snaps as plugins that allow developers to add new and different apps and experiences on top of MetaMask itself. One of the biggest implications of this is that Snaps will connect MetaMask to non-Ethereum chains, including Bitcoin and Solana. In our conversation, we'll dive deep into the vision and the broader implications of Snaps. But first, Erik will go over the basics of this new product.
Snaps is very near and dear to my heart. I've spent most of my time at MetaMask, which is over 5 years now, working on it in some capacity, very intently over the last few years. And so Snaps is, as you said, a way of modifying or extending MetaMask at runtime. And so, because obviously MetaMask originally was built as an Ethereum account manager, and Snaps is our way of letting users both customize their experience of using their wallet and adding functionality to it that we ourselves either don't want to or aren't the best people to build into our wallet, build into the wallet ourselves.
What sort of applications you think are the most suited for this type of product? Like what kind of things are you expecting will be added?
Right. So we have long-term, we have great ambitions for Snaps as a platform. And just so we're on the same page about terminology there. So MetaMask Snaps is the name of the system itself, and then an individual like application or modification that you install via the system is just called a snap. Okay. So right now we're calling this, so we have been in a developer release for quite some time. And so last week we launched what we're calling Snaps Open Beta into the regular MetaMask extension, what we call our stable release channel. And in this first sort of public launch or general audience launch of Snaps, we're focusing on 3 different use cases: interoperability, notifications, and transaction insights. And so interoperability is basically, when you hear that, think multichain, essentially. Mm-hmm. So that's stuff, we have Snaps that add support for Bitcoin, Solana, and other layer 1s into the wallet via the APIs exposed for our interoperability feature. And then for notifications, you have Snaps can use them for a variety of different reasons. For example, an interoperability snap could use it to notify the user when a transaction is completed. But our ambition there is to have stuff like ENS renewal reminders, notifications about on-chain events, or whatever else that a snap might want to tell their users about. Then finally, transaction insights is one that is very applicable for, or currently most applicable for existing Ethereum users, so most of MetaMask user base. And we've seen over the past several months to a year a proliferation of different solutions for security solutions for understanding whether a transaction or signature is safe. And so this API basically lets a snap hook into MetaMask's existing transaction flow, read the unsigned transaction data, and then tell the user what it thinks of it. So, and mostly these are at the moment security related. So that if you're transacting with a known malicious address or something like that, or if the snap finds it the transaction suspicious for whatever reason, then it can show a warning to the user.
Very cool. I mean, 3 super powerful use cases for MetaMask for sure. Before we kind of dive deeper on those, how does building a snap work? Like, is it like an open API? Is it open source? Or do you have to I don't know, get some sort of partnership with Consensys to do it? Like, what does the process look like for a developer?
Right. So our long-term ambition for the system is to make it completely open and permissionless, meaning anyone can develop a snap and publish it, and users will immediately be able to install it in the wallet. That is already the case in our developer channel, MetaMask Flask, where we have snaps available both in the extension and mobile. The open beta for the general audience channel is only on the extension for now, but mobile is coming. Mm-hmm. And so the process, so in order to get into so anyone can develop a snap, and all of the documentation and the code of the platform is open source. You can go and read the source on GitHub, and you essentially write a JavaScript program. It can also contain WebAssembly, and of course you can use TypeScript, JavaScript, whatever your regular sort of Node.js development stack, whatever you're already using. And then you compile that, or you bundle that as like a single JavaScript file and publish it to NPM. And then MetaMask is able to fetch that package at runtime and then sort of install it into the wallet, and then it's available to use. And so because this thing is, we're essentially turning MetaMask into an application platform of sorts, right? And so it's new for us and it's new for our users. And so making sure that like our users are able to safely use and install snaps that can be published by anyone, is a difficult problem to solve, and one that we're currently working on. And so for the first iterations of the current release in the stable channel, we do have an allow list, and you have to basically come and talk to us in order to get onto that allow list and meet certain criteria, such as having a security audit and a use case that we think will add value. And are right now, like the thing that we're working on more intensely than ever now that the system is released, is to remove ourselves from the equation and let the sort of ecosystem decide what is a useful snap and what is a safe and secure snap.
Right now, for when you are maintaining this allow list, what are the things that you're looking at? So
the main things there are, first of all, that it's a use case that we think will add value to our users, because one of the reasons, there are several reasons that we don't want to become an app store and have us be, the approvers, the gatekeepers of who gets to get into the Snaps ecosystem. That's my part of MetaMask is called permissionless innovation for a reason. Mm-hmm. We want it to be permissionless, so. The first thing is that it's a valuable use case because we have limited capacity. We're not totally sure what the limit is, but maintaining a centralized allow list, there's only so many snaps that we'll be able to support, just like logistically. And then secondly, we want them to be secure, so essentially useful and secure. And the security piece, we have a list of reputable auditors that are, have done various work already in the Web3 space. The Snap developer teams have to go and engage one of these auditors, get an audit report, share it with us, and they also have to share their response and sort of convince us that, they've worked with this auditor to address all of their concerns. So usefulness and security/safety are the two main things.
And when you remove yourselves, how will you continue to ensure that snaps created are useful and secure, or will that not be a priority then?
Right. So we are trying to create tools to let the user establish trust in a snap in a decentralized and permissionless way. And so we are working with a couple of different teams both like within Consensys and in the Web3 ecosystem, to figure out how to let the user essentially build their own trust graph, so that in order to establish whether something is safe and useful or not. And so, for example, if we want to get to a point in the future where a user can ask the question, which snaps are recommended by Dan Finley or Camila Russo or Vitalik, and then from there sort of basically look at which snaps are recommended and used by their friends and people that they trust in the ecosystem, and look at sort of reviews and if they're technical, they can even look at audit reports for different snaps, and then sort of in that way establish whether they want to use a particular snap or not.
Maybe there will be some spam or less useful and less secure snaps being built, but by that time, hopefully there will be a robust enough network and recommendations and ratings on these snaps that you will be trusting the user to make kind of the right call.
Yes, exactly. And that's like what and so that web of trust, like all of that infrastructure, it doesn't exist yet. And so the allow list is basically, we're just buying ourselves time in order to, because we felt that the platform is already in a state where it can be useful and people can get something out of it. And so obviously, there are a variety of reasons why you want to ship something that is ready to ship as soon as possible. So we felt that it was ready to go, but the decentralized sort of the permissionless distribution, as we call it, all of that web of trust stuff isn't ready quite yet. And so while we're working on that, we have this select set, currently 34 snaps available in production, and we can sort of learn from that and work with our users to start the process of iterating on all of the different features that the platform has to offer. And then as soon as the permissionless distribution component is ready, then we'll be able to make that available to all of our users, and it can be ready for users to safely engage with all of these with this permissionless ecosystem.
So here's something new. Bumper your assets to defend them from price drops without losing upside exposure. You set a price floor and term length, then lock your tokens into the protocol. When your term ends, if the price has fallen under your floor, you leave with stablecoins at the floor's value. Otherwise, you just take back your original asset. Bumper is going live in August, and it's one of the most innovative DeFi protocols for hedging being built right now. So check out bumper.fi, there's links in the description of this video. Now back to our story.
You said MetaMask is becoming this, what was your wording, like application?
An application platform, yeah.
Is that kind of analogous to like Apple's, like, I don't know, OS? Like, is that where you're heading?
Yeah. So we've been joking ever since we started thinking about this. We've sort of had internal jokes of like MetaMask operating system when, and it's and we are in reality we are MetaMask is not an operating system in a traditional sense. We're at a higher layer of abstraction, and we don't directly interface with hardware like memory management or any of those things traditionally handled by operating systems. But with the introduction of snaps, we are making we have a lot of the same responsibilities as an operating system in terms of managing mutually distrusting programs interacting with each other and interacting with our APIs, and making sure that they get the sort of resources that they need in order to function. And so I wouldn't say that we're moving like in the direction of like an Apple or a Microsoft in terms of their operating systems, but we think that that end user applications today are, in a sense, like they're very what shall we like curated is not the right word, but they're sort of dictated by the developer, and they don't leave a lot of room for the user to customize what they're doing. And as part of the Snaps launch, I wrote a blog post called Permissionless Innovation and You. And so permissionless innovation is a term that has a history. It was originally introduced as like this idea about how innovation or tech should be regulated. Essentially, when we talk about permissionless innovation, we just mean that like anyone like in the Web3 ecosystem, any MetaMask user, any dApp developer should be able to build and distribute whatever functionality they want without having to go through a centralized gatekeeper. Because like all of these, the sort of irony of the current situation is that we have these, extremely powerful devices like in our hands, in our homes, that can do and represent basically anything. But the experiences that we have on them, like the end user applications, are dictated by forces that are, far larger than ourselves and completely outside of our control. We're trying to, one of our goals with Snaps and with our permissionless innovation strategy is to give users and developers more control over what they build, what they do, and how they experience their applications.
Okay, that's interesting. Can you bring that kind of down to earth a little bit for me? Like, okay, the concept is interesting, saying that how apps are developed today, to you, they're being more dictated than I don't know, like coming directly from users. That there's not a lot of opportunity to curate and customize. But I mean, isn't it still the case that developers can still kind of build whatever they want, and they are taking feedback from users to do that? So it's like users still have some say. I mean, they can influence what gets built, because it's like developers are trying to build things that will be useful. So they're kind of listening to what, whatever gap in the market there is to build that, or like what exactly do you mean by this concept that things are dictated and you want things to be like more permissionless?
Sure, I'll give you an example of that. And so like recently, I was A/B tested in one of the applications that I use daily. It's a music player or music streaming service that will not be named. In this, so A/B testing, for those of you who are not aware, is a super common practice in product management and software development. Basically, you have your application, you have your users. You give some users experience A, and you give some users experience B, and then you see how they perform. And so in this application, the A/B, I ended up in some user cohort where the homepage of the application started automatically playing music, sort of in a way that was like reminiscent of like the .com era internet. And when this happened to me, I found it extremely frustrating and irritating, and I was like immediately sort of aggressively like hitting my phone, trying to get it to switch away from the homepage view. And so the application developer is doing that, because they're trying different things, figuring out what works, figuring what users respond well to, in order to provide a better experience for their users, generally speaking, right? But I, as a user of that application, which has millions and millions of users, I have very little to no ability to, I can't opt in or opt out of being A/B tested. I can't, even if I complained about being A/B tested or complained about the feature, like my individual voice is not really going to change anything about my experience using the application, because again, like they have millions of users. And so me as an individual opting out of using the application entirely won't materially affect the company's bottom line. I don't have a big social media following, so I can't create like some kind of social media mob to generate a bunch of negative engagement that they'll take into account when making their decisions. And it's like, the device that I hold in my hand is like, my property and in my control, but the things that are being fed to me through it are, I have no direct say or ability to influence what it's doing or what it's saying to me. And the way obviously that that commercial entities try to optimize their software, it's ultimately about creating something that works for their business model and creates financial returns for the company at some place down the line. That is not the same thing as the user experience that I want or would be ideal for me. And so we think that not just like we think that the applications that we actually use in our day-to-day lives, and I think this personally, can be made more extensible and more customizable by the users, and give ourselves more control over what we experience on our devices and in applications that we use for hours and hours of every day, taking up an increasingly large part of our lives.
Okay, got it. Yeah, definitely. So you have your phone and you choose which apps to download, but beyond that, you're pretty powerless as a user. It's like, okay, the businesses behind those apps will change them and test them and change them again, however they want, and without taking individual users' opinions into account very much. They'll do like these aggregated, testings and market research, but it's true that it doesn't feel like we as individuals have a lot of agency on what's happening. So how does that change with like these MetaMask-based apps?
I'll give you a two-part answer to that. The first is that obviously, we are also a commercial entity, and we also have a business model, and we also need to generate revenue. And A/B testing is ubiquitous because it is, it has proven to be an effective way of doing software development and understanding, what works for the user in the aggregate. What we're hoping to is, we at MetaMask do A/B testing. And we will continue to do A/B testing for all of those reasons. At the same time, what you can do with snaps is, for example, if we go back to the transaction insights feature, currently it's only enabled for Ethereum transactions, but over time we want to enable it for signatures is sort of the next step, and then going from there, eventually. Like any or the vast majority of confirmations that appear inside of MetaMask should be customizable by snaps. And what that will allow the user to do is, if they're like, the ideal experience that we're trying to create there is if the user doesn't like something about the defaults that we have inside of the application, like for example, if they don't like something about our gas estimation, which is something that we know for a fact that users have had, different users have had different issues or concerns with over MetaMask existence, they should be able to, like, why why can't they just swap that out? And with snaps, they'll be able to do just that. And you can generalize that idea. Like ultimately, we'd want to generalize that idea to every single component in the wallet. That'll be a long road to get us to that point. But that is the ambition, because like there are defaults and there will always be defaults. But if you're like, I don't like this particular thing, I would prefer it to do this instead, you should be able to make that change to it.
Okay, I see. So yeah, it's a much more personalized experience.
Yes.
To applications. Nice. Grow your business with unlimited borderless payment solutions. Leverage one of the world's largest proprietary payment infrastructures available in Europe, LATAM, APAC, Africa, and the UK. Snaps has been in the works, you said, for like 5 years.
Yes. Well, it's I want to say like 4.5. And I can give you the backstory there.
I'd love that.
Like. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I joined MetaMask. I had my 5-year anniversary at MetaMask a few months ago. I joined as a software engineering intern in 2018, and then I joined full time in 2019 after a year. And in early 2019 or so, I think Dan Finley would have to correct me on the precise timeline, but that is when he brought me into a meeting with our friends at Agoric, talking about object capabilities, which Dan was interested in to create sort of better APIs for dApps. And ultimately to support runtime modifications, i.e. snaps, inside of MetaMask. So the idea came out of Dan sort of trying to solve the problem in 2018-19. The team was very small at the time, less than 15 people or less. And it was already at the time sort of impossible to keep up with all of the innovations and things being built inside of Ethereum. And this sort of solution that Dan came up with is like, well, if we let developers customize MetaMask itself, that is actually our only hope of supporting all of the different things being built in Ethereum, let alone all of Web3. Because there's no way that we, as an organization of our size, could build all of these things ourselves. I think it's ultimately like, because of how different like these various protocols are, I think it's extremely difficult for an organization of any size to build all of these things like by itself. Which is one of it. And so we think that Snaps is ultimately like a more permissionless and scalable model than trying to build like a universal Web3 interface as a single like centralized organization. So in any event, Dan sort of hatched the idea in early 2019. That's at least when he communicated it to me, and I was immediately on board. I thought the idea was super cool, and we built a sort of new permission system in the wallet that could support the different APIs that we wanted to build for Snaps. The successor of that permission system powers the existing Snaps platform and also our existing API that we expose to dApps. And we presented this prototype in 2019 at DevCon. We had a sort of big, a talk about it, a bunch of blog posts and stuff. And 2020 was going to be the year when we built it and shipped it to users. Then 2020 didn't go as planned. And it was a really tough year, I think, in Web3 generally speaking, and a tough year for us at MetaMask also. And we basically had to focus on the core product and keeping the lights on. And we didn't have time to focus on these longer term things. By the time 2021 came around, things were different. We had spent this year just we got through this tough patch, and we were still, we were generating revenue, and our user base was growing. And that's the point when I was sort of like, okay, enough farting around. I grabbed I basically tapped like two of my colleagues, Mark Stacey and Shane Jonas, that's formed the sort of initial core of the Snaps team. And then I worked full time on Snaps from early 2021 until I passed the baton to Christian Montoya in late 2022 when I stepped into my current director of product role.
It's interesting that there was this gap where, you had to put the project on hold because Consensys was going through this tough time. And I'm sure a lot of projects in crypto and Web3 will be able to relate to that right now. Right now it's a tough time in the space. I'm sure a lot of many projects out there are having to put their plans on hold. So I think it's inspiring to see that you guys did that and were able to, pull through and ship this successfully, even if it didn't go exactly as planned from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing a lot of sort of thinking back on the early days and how naive we were about how long we thought that it was going to take. It's sort of a metaphor that we like to use as sort of you're replacing the engine on the plane while it's flying and also kind of falling apart at the same time. And it was it's been a journey, and sort of now we've finally gotten to the starting line in a sense, where we actually have this thing out in the wild. And we have users, and we can engage with them and start to iterate on what we've built and move it towards this permissionless vision that we have for the system.
Very cool. And then as for the interface, because if the genesis of Snaps came about because of this insight that it's just going to be impossible to keep up with all the innovation that's happening in Ethereum and Web3. So, let's, people build directly on MetaMask itself. How does that affect the interface for MetaMask? Are you guys planning to have this sort of app store kind of situation in the future where you're searching for different Web3 apps, or I don't know, how do things change from that perspective?
Right. Yeah. So we are not building an app store, and so it's sort of trivially not a store because we're not going to charge for Snaps, and we don't take a cut. From Snaps monetize themselves. That's their business, and our business model is not to sort of create this walled garden and then extract rent. We see Snaps as sort of from a business point of view. We want anyone to be able to, extend MetaMask in whatever way they want and use MetaMask for whatever purpose they want. And our belief there is that will, attract the most users to MetaMask. And in terms of how it changes the interface, so there's the kind of what we call the discoverability portion. Which is, I think, what your store question is getting at. And so right now we have a what we call a directory where we list all of the snaps that are on the allow list. And so I believe the URL is snaps.metamask.io. We'll take you to the directory, and there you can see and install all of the snaps that are on the allow list. And so we're not doing a store. But we are trying to provide, tools to help people see what's out there. What are these different things? What do they do? That sort of thing. And that's not a part of the core application itself. It's just hosted on a website. Snaps will have a profound effect on the MetaMask user interface over time. And so that requires both, that requires us to change, sometimes outright replace a lot of legacy code, which we have a considerable amount of, since MetaMask is 7+ years old at this point. And really, there's always we're always looking to improve our user interface and make it, sort of more sleek, keep up with, the latest in design thinking and user interface, not trends, but the sort of as we as an industry learn more about user interface design, we're always trying to iterate and improve on our UI and UX. But more than anything, in order for us to realize this ultimate vision of snaps where you can take anything in the wallet and swap it out with something different, the whole application needs to become highly modular and extensible. So everything needs to be made of sort of both at the sort of UI and design layer and in the actual underlying code in a way where you can, replace logic, replace a component that with something that looks different. And we have a lot of people, across the organization, both on our design and front end engineering teams, working to make this transition happen.
Wow, that sounds like a huge change, from the code up to how the app itself or the wallet itself looks. So yeah, it will be interesting to see how that transition happens. But yeah, it seems like just a foundational shift for MetaMask to become so modular.
Yeah, it really is. It really, it takes the efforts of the entire organization to make it happen. We have a lot of changes coming to our UI that I think all MetaMask users will be really excited about. You
mentioned briefly the business model for this, and I don't want to let that just pass by like that. I think it's interesting from what I got. It's so you're not charging for snaps, and you're betting that just having these apps built on MetaMask will attract more users to MetaMask, and that's how you'll make money off this. Basically, as I understand, how MetaMask does make money is through the swap fee, right? Is that the right idea, or what exactly goes into the business model for this?
Right. So the idea is it's basically as you said. So our offerings, we have swaps, we have bridging. We have these services that the user can use on a voluntary opt-in basis that we charge a fee for because they are expensive to build and maintain. And as I alluded to previously, we are a commercial enterprise and we need to generate revenue somehow in order to exist and accomplish all of the things that we want to accomplish. And so by building the best wallet, which we take to mean, a wallet that lets the user safely do whatever it is that they want to do using Web3, and by having the widest array of use cases available inside of the wallet, more people will choose to use MetaMask as their default wallet, and then once they start using MetaMask, they may elect to use some of these services that we also offer on an opt-in basis, because they're good, and then by choosing to pay for those services, then we generate revenue in that way.
Going to some of the initial use cases in this open beta, I think the interoperability one is, at least to me, super interesting. Of course, the other ones are too, but just thinking, okay, wow, you'll be able to use MetaMask for Bitcoin is pretty wild. I mean, it's, I just associate MetaMask strictly with Ethereum. So how does that look like? Can you, as a Bitcoin holder, yeah, like if I'm holding Bitcoin, how do I go about and now using MetaMask to transact?
I'm really glad you asked that question because it's something that we've definitely celebrated internally and been very excited about. Sort of, using MetaMask to, manage your crypto on other layer ones, including Bitcoin, which is of course exciting because it's the OG one, and it's always been, it's been kind of the white whale, right? In a sense of like. Capabilities to add to MetaMask. And so the way interoperability snaps work for the user today is when the snap is installed, it requests the permission to manage keys for the protocol or protocols that the snap is going to make available to the user. And so, because a lot of these protocols, like they use the same standards to derive keys from the user's seed phrase or secret recovery phrase, SRP is the term that I should be using. And so the snap manages the keys for the protocols that it requests and those protocols only. Snaps are not currently allowed to manage Ethereum keys because that's, MetaMask job. We may look at that again at some point in the future. So they install the snap, and then at the moment, there is no way for the snaps to represent their assets and transactions directly inside of the MetaMask UI itself. They can show confirmations. For example, like a transaction confirmation. But you actually have to look at your balance and your transaction history in what we call a companion dApp. So the Snap developer has also developed a dApp that is able to, read information from the Snap and display the user's transactions and balances and so on. The ability for say Bitcoin Snap to represent its assets and transactions inside of MetaMask itself is pending some of these major UI changes that we were talking about earlier. And so each snap at the moment has its sort of own dedicated API. So the dApp, any dApp that wishes to communicate with it needs to basically integrate or support that specific snap using MetaMask API. We have some plans going forward. We are currently developing a multi-chain API that will eventually let dApps be agnostic or sort of unaware of what is providing access to the snap. So that you can just ask MetaMask, hey, I want to talk to Bitcoin, and then we will just wire the dApp up to the Bitcoin snap under the hood without the dApp needing to know about the existence of the snap.
Wow, that's very cool. So this is it's like a more concrete path to this, multi-chain vision that a lot of people love to imagine is the future. I think this is how we intuitively think that a blockchain-based internet should work. It's like you're interacting with different applications, but the user shouldn't be aware of what chain exactly is running them, right? Like,
yeah,
you shouldn't have to know all these like technical information. Exactly. So this is cool. Like this is like a path to that. And for that to happen, I imagine there's like there's like bridging happening. I don't know, like it sounds like it has to be expensive to do this. Like there's also just like wait times for some chains. Like for withdrawing and depositing into some chains. So like how do you deal with all that?
Right. So the bridging question is of like actual. So there's there's sort of two sides to this. Like the first is being able to manage all of your assets using a single interface. And so we think of that as turning MetaMask into a universal Web3 interface. and Snaps is the means by which we're going to do that. And then there is, secondarily, there is interoperating between different chains, like using bridging and other means like that. That is a sort of a complicated problem domain in and of itself. It's not a problem that I have worked on directly myself, but we do have a bridging team that offers a bridging product via our portfolio, and it's something that they are working on, especially in the EVM space right now, and then sort of cross layer one bridging sounds like an even more difficult problem, particularly if you're trying to do it like in a decentralized and trustless manner. It is just going to be difficult, and there is going to be friction there for a very long time, unless you're using centralized intermediaries. Yeah,
that sounds right. Okay, so and just to clarify the difference between the two. So the one aspect is managing your assets through MetaMask regardless of the chain, and so that's just okay, I want to send Bitcoin to another Bitcoin wallet. You can do that through a snap on MetaMask today. And there's the other step, which is, okay, I want to convert my ETH to Bitcoin, I guess, and something that involves transacting from one chain to another, and that's where things start to get complicated, and you have to account for bridging and all that stuff.
Yes, so I think the solutions for that remain the same as they are today. I think when MetaMask, particularly when MetaMask, when we've created this multi-chain API and a user interface that makes it easy to see all of your assets and do transactions and all that stuff, then it will at least be easier for the user to perform bridging, because you don't have to install multiple wallets. You don't have to switch between different browsers or devices or whatever other complex flow. Ideally, we can at least get to a point where you connect to a single DApp with a single wallet with both your Ethereum accounts and your Bitcoin accounts, and then do everything you need right there with a single wallet on a single page.
That's super exciting. I mean, that's already a big step forward in kind of user experience. Very cool. Okay, and then so right now Snaps is in open beta. When does the actual live, not beta, start? And then what does that mean?
Right. So we are still sort of defining our beta exit criteria, I suppose, because there are a couple of different, and it's going to be, somewhere on the way to this milestone of a universal Web3 interface. At the very least, we want these, we want permissionless distribution. So we want to have sort of removed ourselves as the gatekeeper. I think that's definitely one thing we consider a requirement as of this moment. And ideally, we would also like interoperability snaps, so multi-chain snaps, to represent their transactions, assets, etc., directly in the wallet UI without the user having to go to a separate DApp just to see their balance.
Do you have an estimate for when that could happen?
No, not a concrete estimate. It's it is our highest priority on the Snaps team in particular, but also, as I mentioned, we have a lot of different teams that are working toward this multi-chain vision, and we should have. Hopefully have some timelines to share as we get into 2024. But just as with the Snaps open beta, it's sort of it's something we believe very strongly in, and it will be ready when it's ready, because ultimately we want to always deliver an experience to our users that we are proud of delivering to them.
Very nice. Okay, and then you've alluded to this, like to the long-term vision for Snaps and MetaMask, but more concretely, what does the end state? I mean, there's I know there's probably no end state in software development, but say 10 years from now, when things are more stable and you've kind of built everything that you and your team are dreaming of, what does that look like?
Yeah, so I think for me, I think that is. One part of it is abstracting more and more of the technical details away from the user while still doing it in a decentralized manner, without a custodial layer or intermediary. So it should be extremely easy to move between different dApps and protocols seamlessly and without long delays and without having to install multiple different applications. And when you go to a dApp, it should be able to ask you, it shouldn't ask you for a list of accounts or a list of specific chains. It should ask for the things that it needs in order to do its job. So it's if you go to an exchange, the dApp should just be able to ask you for, I need an allowance or the permission to transact with, this much ETH and this much BTC. And then the user should just be able to approve that in a single confirmation. And then the dApp should be able to perform whatever it is that the user wants to perform. And then again, as well, we want users to have granular, a high degree and very granular control over their user interface and the functionality that is in the wallet. Because the other thing that Snaps will allow you to do over time is that everything is sort of pluggable and swappable. So you could imagine a situation where when you onboard to MetaMask, you sort of choose what you want to use it for. If you're more into DeFi, or if you're more into NFTs, or if you're more into gaming, or any other number of categories of use cases that we haven't imagined or haven't come to fruition yet, you should just be able to basically build the wallet or choose the experience that fits your specific needs. And change it at will without us or anyone else dictating to you what using Web3 or using your wallet should be like.
It's an exciting vision. I do agree that this feels like the next step in apps. Just a more personalized experience for the user. In Web3, I think people are supposed to be more in control. And so that certainly is a way towards that. And then, finally, and wrapping up, but curious if there's any talk of hardware, if your team have ever kind of discussed that. Even, I don't know, as kind of a long, far off plan or something that you'd like to someday develop, or is that not really being considered at all?
I mean, if we're talking the long term, then sure, it's something that we'd be that we've thought about, because it's sort of on some level. This problem of your sort of experience being dictated to you and controlled by centralized actors that you have very little power over, it obviously extends to our to the device level, and that's another thing, like we've joked about, like sort of, when MetaMask OS, like when MetaMask phone, and we would, we're a long way away from wanting to trying to enter the hardware business, but it's definitely like an idea that we've like in our sort of like wildest dreams and like talking about our greatest ambitions, like we would love to do that at some point down the line, but we have a long way to go yet.
Wow, that's super exciting. I would love a MetaMask phone, to be honest. Like that'd be cool. Okay, so title of this podcast, MetaMask is going after Apple.
Please. I don't know about that.
Well, kind of, maybe.
Kind
in 10 years. We'll see. Erik, this was awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. Super fun. And yeah, like I said, I think this is a really interesting and needed development for MetaMask and wallets. So I'm sure we'll be seeing more of snaps in the future, and we'll keep covering all of the developments in the Defiant. And yeah, I guess like last thing, if you want to point people to where they can get started to check like all the different snaps that are being developed or anything like that.
Yeah. So if you're a MetaMask user, you can go to snaps.metamask.io, which will take you to our snaps directory, where you can see the snaps that are available and stable right now and start trying them out. If you're a developer, I encourage you to download MetaMask Flask, which you can find at metamask.io/Flask. And then you can, that's what we recommend that you use in order to get access to the latest Snaps APIs. So you can start like experimenting with them. And then, if you want to get your Snap available in stable, reach out to us, and we are more than happy to talk to you. Like now is the time to, now is a great time to get involved and, help us co-create the wallet and influence the direction of the platform.
Amazing. Okay. Thanks again, Erik. Super fun conversation.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you, Carol.